producer. Welcome to my interview series, How to Get into TV, Radio and Film, in which top industry professionals share their career stories, the best and most challenging aspects of their jobs, and they give great advice as to how you too could break into this business. To keep up to date with who I'm interviewing and when, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, it's time to introduce my guest. She's worked in the broadcast industry for over 20 years, and she's worked across a huge variety of projects, including the great British classics, EastEnders, Blue Peter, and Bear Grylls Survival School. Welcome, Zeb Achonu. Hi, Zeb.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So we're going to get straight into it. Tell us, how did you break into this industry, and why did you choose this industry?
So first of all, I didn't really choose the industry. I thought I was going to be a pop star. That was my goal.
Oh, wow. Tell us more.
No, Beyonce got there first. I let her have it. But yeah, I did a degree at Manchester Metropolitan in creative arts. Still wasn't sure what I wanted to do apart from music. But I had done some editing there without really realising that that's what I was doing. Well, I knew I was editing, but not.
In what capacity had you edited? How come you'd done a bit?
I was making sort of scratch videos, just sort of making. It was all tape, controller machines then, and just sort of putting little clips together to music, my own songs or friends' songs, and making what I realise now were my first sort of attempts at documentaries about friends and their illnesses or their passions, and then when I left, I applied for any job to do with the media really, and I managed to get on a BBC post-production trainee scheme, which was for 2 years.
Can we just slow down a moment? So I'm a bit curious about something. So you have these aspirations to be a pop star. And within that, you were editing your own music videos and little documentaries. And then you applied for this, opportunity at the BBC. But what did you present to them? How on earth did you get into the editing space?
Luckily for me, they weren't looking for people who had loads and loads of experience. They were looking for people who had lots of interest. So if I'm honest, because 20 odd years later I can be about this, I didn't really know what post-production meant. I just thought it was a job at the BBC, post something to do with making telly, but didn't really understand what it meant. And so they were looking for people with interest, but not necessarily knowing. So people who'd done hospital radio or made their own TV things, but without a real goal, without a real coming fresh, I guess, so they could give you their own, give you their way of working. And I got through to interview level out of, I guess, around, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people or something. They were taking on 8 people. And in the interview, I really remember them asking me if I'd ever worked with an edit controller. And I actually said, is that a person? What is that? And they described this machine. I was like, oh, the dial with the tape. Yeah, absolutely, totally. And so they could see that I knew the equipment. I just didn't know the words. I didn't know the phrases. I didn't know
the terminology. Yeah,
exactly. And I knew I wanted to work in the industry, but I wanted to work with sound. And this was a scheme for all post-production. They weren't specific. It wasn't you're going to be an editor. It was you're going to be trained in post-production. And I guess I said something right, and I got on really well in the interview, and I got the job, which was brilliant and nerve-wracking. But I was still, at that stage, I was still like, oh, it's 2 years in a job. I was very new to it all. I was like, I don't know what it means. And there was an awful lot of time copying tapes, which, it was something to do to pass the time, but I was actually learning the whole time about different tape formats. Obviously, we don't use tape so much anymore, but, it was still learning. And they sent us on 2 weeks at a time to go to they had a special BBC training unit in Evesham, which I don't think they have anymore. And so 2 weeks at a time, I would go with the other 7 trainees, and we would be given the sort of theory of TV post-production and TV production. And this was incredible. It was intense, and it was a lot of learning, and a lot of it was really hard to take on because, I'm the kind of person, if I'm not using that skill at that time, I find it really hard to learn. Like if somebody teaches me something, I need to go and practice it now before it leaves my mind. But we did that, and we had a great time. And So yeah, after a couple of years of being an assistant, working around different departments at the BBC, and doing a bit of sound, doing a bit of post-production, working in the gallery on TV productions, live productions like children's news.
So getting a feel for the whole environment.
Exactly. And being able to sort of learning little things like how long everything takes. Like if you've got 10 seconds to spool through a tape to find the bit they want, learning what time is. It seems really weird, but it's a big part of TV production, especially live TV. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And after 4 years at the BBC, I was able to start editing short things like for CBeebies, like the inserts, the parts between the programs where the presenters say, next we're going to have this, and they still have to be edited, they still have to be prepared. So I would do that. I moved on from there to working on short packages for programs like music packages, music news for the UK Top 40 or Exchange.
So as you were progressing, so share with us, so from entry level of knowing nothing but having a bit of experience but not knowing what the terminology was, to where you are now, working on some huge British classics, really successful. Who did you have to be? What did you have to do to get on?
It sounds really obvious, but it was a case of soaking up all the information that I could get. It was a case of saying yes to new challenges. It was, yes, I want to work on your new TV show that starts at 5 a.m. I have to be in the gallery, spooling up tapes and being, taking responsibility for things. And it was that. It was,
so getting out your comfort zone. Am I hearing that correctly?
Absolutely. And also just getting to know everyone, getting to know as many people as you could, and asking questions, really not being scared to say, like, it was a really big thing. And it came up in the interview as well. What do you do if you're in an edit or you're in a situation and you just don't know what to do? And it comes out that it's not about sitting there, pulling your hair out till you work it out. It's having a go, but knowing how much time you've got, and realistically, when you need to leave that room and go and find some help, you don't need to let your clients know that you need some help. And it's different these days because you've all got Google on your phone in your pocket. But it's about sort of saying, right, I need to take a breath of fresh air, go and find someone and say, I'm having a problem, I need some help.
But the thing is, there's no shame in that, even though we may have Google at hand to do a quick search, like, oh God, what does that mean, or whatever. Nevertheless, there's no shame if you don't know something to politely go and ask somebody, look, I don't know this, can you help me?
Exactly. And then you've just learned something as well. And sometimes you've just learned that it's something that wasn't your problem and you can't fix it, which is great as well. But then you get the confidence to know when you see that again, to be able to turn to someone and say, this is a problem that we can't fix. So yeah, so I think for me, it's talking to people, making sure that you remember what everyone around you does, and also trying to see where you fit in that chain. Is really important to understand what the person before you's done and what the next person's doing, so you see how you link that and how you can make that process smoother, really, and better.
I remember when I started in this business, if I got the opportunity, I started off as a floor manager, basically on the studio floor, organizing things so everything in production whilst we're filming live or recording goes well, just for those who might not know that. And I remember every time I had an opportunity to go to sound or to a different department, I always went, because I was like, well, if I know what they're doing, then it makes me understand what they're doing a bit better.
Exactly. And also you tend to find, like, I didn't want to be an editor. I used to joke that, I don't want to sit in a dark windowless room for hours on end.
And that's what it is, essentially.
Exactly. I used to joke that wasn't the life for me. I just wanted to do music, and, I wanted to cable up studios and that kind of thing, which is still dark rooms, but, which I thought were cool. But as time went on, I realised that I had a real love for putting the pictures together and finding the story and the rushes. And I wouldn't have got that if I'd have gone in with my sort of very blinkered, I only do this. I was like, right, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What can I learn? Oh, you need a trainee in that department, and I've got some space. Let me take that on. And if it is, I was able to get involved with a department called Production Development, who were introducing the industry in the UK to HD. you know, so this is going back some time, and to be at the sort of forefront of that, and to be having to, you know, it was a massive learning curve to sort of learn this stuff and then be a part of, you know, I was very junior on this, but a part of setting up a 2-day event where we taught the industry from, you know, all over how to use HD and the benefits, the pros and cons, and the, you know, all of this kind of stuff. And this was amazing. This was so new and so exciting, and it wasn't my everyday role, but it was just an opportunity. So I did put my hand up, and I was
Yeah.
lucky to get
And
selected.
it sounds like you seized the opportunities and ran with
What
them.
it's all
So
about. That's what it's
I'd
all
like to
about.
just talk about your job role now
Yeah.
for those who might be interested in doing what you're doing. So talk to me about the challenges, including sitting in a dark room, as well as you know, the positives. You mentioned a few of the positives, but if you could just highlight, you know, what and instantly comes to mind as, oh, that's the hard bit, and but those are the good bits.
So I think with all my jobs, whether it's for a TV documentary or a TV film or a short film or, you know, continuing drama, whatever it is, it's about getting in. It's about being organized. Everything's about being organized and getting in on day one and finding out all the information that you need, whether it's the scripts that you need and who your script supervisor is and your director, and any information that you're going to need before you begin to do anything. Where are your rushes? Where are your scripts? Who do you report to? What hours are people expecting you to be there for? And you know, one of the biggest challenges is that this no matter how long I do the job for and how much faster I think I am, the days are long. The days are really long, and that's a big challenge for, you know, having family or a life, or, you know, we're not commuting at the moment, but it's everything takes time. If someone says, can you just do this, it'll take 5 minutes, it doesn't. It takes an hour minimum. And that's just the way it is. You know, I often say that my hands don't move, or the computer doesn't move as fast as my brain's going when I'm thinking about how to put something together. So those are the
I mean,
kind of
so what are you saying? The commitment to the job is
absolutely,
critical.
yeah, and you can't, you know, I go into some jobs and think, oh, this would be quite nice and straightforward and I'll be able to, you know, knock this out quickly, but you don't, because the perfectionist in you will also go back over it. It's sort of an inbuilt thing. You know, you want to do your best all the time. You want, because it represents you, whether it's you know, whatever it is, it represents your work. You want to be invited back to work on it, and even if you don't want anyone talking about you that you
Exactly.
couldn't do the job. So
It's got your name on it, you know.
yes,
You will get a credit.
exactly,
Whichever show you contribute to, you get
yeah,
your name on screen, and you know that's a legacy, isn't it? So
yeah. And even when it's not, even when it's something so small that you don't get a credit, you're aware of the team, because it's such teamwork for all of this. You don't really do anything on your own, but you're just so aware that if you don't put anything in, you're messing up everyone else's work. It's just a real, you know, I've had that definitely since, you know, even when I wanted to be a pop star, it was about, you know, having to work collaboratively as a team to create something. And that's the same in this role. You are part of a team creating something.
and
And so you're,
how do you manage the long hours? And also, it's quite, for the most part, editing, unless you have a producer sat next to you, it's quite a solitary job.
it is. Usually, outside of pandemic conditions, I do have an edit producer or director with me for some of the work. I quite enjoy the solitary stuff because it gives me time to sort of work through, but I'm still in communication with people. So there's that. And then once you do get together with someone, you know, for the final stages with the director, it's really nice to see how if your vision matches theirs, or if it's changed theirs, or how you work together. So that's, you know, the collaborative bit, and to see how someone else's view merged with yours changes things ever so slightly to make a better product. The long hours, I wouldn't say there's something you get used to. There's something that, as I've gone on in my career, um, I've developed the confidence to be able to say, you know, enough's enough. I need a break.
But the thing is, when you're at entry level, is that luxury there? I don't think so.
It's not, and it should be. And luckily, there are quite a number of people and organisations like Beck2 who are fighting the good fight to try and stop that happening, because overwork doesn't help anyone. If you're not rested, you're not thinking straight, you're not producing good work anyway. Like I say, my experience has given me the confidence to sort of know that this is what's expected of me. This is what I can do in a day. There are times when I'm going to have to because something is necessary, or it's different. Everyone suddenly, everybody's suddenly got an opinion on the cut. Balances out on other days where you've sort of flown through and gone, this is comfortable, this is a good pace. And if your team around you are great, if your edit producers and directors are nice, then the time flies anyway.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But, I just wanted to make it clear to those watching who might be at entry level that this industry does involve long, long hours, whether you're in the edit, whether you're in production, whether you're in pre-production.
Absolutely.
The hours are long. It's something people tend to think that this industry is very glamorous. And I guess, with the output we have, it seems glamorous, but the actual work behind cameras, what's going on, is hard work, right?
Absolutely. I mean, my days I'm expected to do a 10-hour day. That's my minimum. And and if that's 5 days a week, that's 50 hours. It's usually going to be a bit more. Add your commuting and and you want to socialize, you want to be part of the network. So it does kind of take over your life, which again, I think is a really good part. There's pros and cons in that really immersing yourself in the industry or in your career and surrounding yourself with people who do that means, by networking, by making friends with the people that you're working with, it kind of makes that feel okay. The hours are still long. You need to rest. You can't go and, I don't know, drink yourself stupid so that you can, unwind, because you haven't got the energy to do that all the time. So there's a real need to sort of surround yourself with people that understand that sometimes you're going, drop people at the last minute because you just need to rest, because you're expected back in the edit at 9 a.m. the next day.
So let's talk about the genres you work on. I know that we've had a chat before, and you've said that you love working on drama, film, documentaries. For those who are new to all this, but they're like, oh, I like what Zeb's doing, I wouldn't mind doing that. Can you just share very sort of concisely what the different approaches are to drama, to say documentaries, short films, in the editing process?
So with drama, you'll go in and usually, somebody that you've had a script supervisor, you've got your script. There are, all the notes on that about the preferred takes, etc. So you've got a guide to what people want. Your skill there is crafting what they've shot and what they want to make the story work. And you often have assistants and people helping you with that. Documentary differs. Pretty much get the information, but you have to watch everything because it's it's shot as it is. Documentaries, but mostly say observational or whatever, it's as it is. So there isn't, so for example in drama you might have 5 takes of the same conversation to get the best, to make sure you catch everything you need to. In a documentary you've only got 1 attempt, and if somebody's missed the main thing, you then have to find a way to put that jigsaw together to make it feel like you've seen the main event, or to tell that story with what you've got. There's no going back. You might go get some pickups, but for the main story, it's the real jigsaw. Drama, you're working to somebody's vision. They already know what they want to see, and you just have to enhance that and make that happen. So those are the main differences.
So essentially, delivering on somebody else's vision versus adding to the creativity in documentaries.
Yeah.
So now, obviously we've got the backdrop of the pandemic, which has made things so challenging at the moment. Are there still job opportunities for those at entry level? Is there still an opportunity to get your foot in the door into post-production at the moment?
But it's I think it's a real challenge. I think it's a really difficult time to enter the industry now. There are a lot of people who've been in the industry for a long time who are trying to get the same jobs that everyone else is, that new entry people are trying to get also. But there are ways in, and there are schemes. There seems to be a lot of schemes starting up at the moment for different, either with no experience or with some experience. So like the youth project, for example, are a brilliant training scheme that yields amazing results, and they have job plans after it. So something like that's really good. I think it's really important to use this time that we have now to make those connections as well, because while it is a tough
You know,
time,
online, you
it,
can connect with anyone and reach out to
exactly.
people.
Exactly. Twitter and LinkedIn are absolutely your friends right now. Now's the time to be looking at the things that you want to work on and who made them, and contact those people and just sort of say, hey, can I have a quick chat, or can you answer some questions? And people might not have time, but you don't, if you don't ask, you don't get, which is I mean, I learned very quickly in this industry, in the same way as if you don't, really important thing I learned early on was, if you don't tell people what you want to do, nobody knows. So
Yeah,
there's no
you
point in
have to
sitting there.
share it. You have to get it out there in the world
Exactly.
so that people know
Exactly.
what's what. So just to wrap up, what kind of resources are available to, say, somebody at entry level, who can't afford the big apps or the big software? What do you advise for those people who want to get practicing and editing and creating their own projects? Because ultimately you have to have something to show if you want a job.
You do, well, unless you can get in on, if you can get in at runner level and learn a lot of things on the job, or a trainee scheme, then that's brilliant. But there are free packages if you've got the equipment, such as Avid First do a free package, which is exactly the same as Avid, but less audio
And of
track.
course, Avid is software that's used in the industry alongside
It
others.
is. It's, I'd say, the main broadcasting industry use that, I would say. Premiere, I think you can probably get free trials on things, so that's a great one to use. I'm not a Mac user, but I assume there's still iMovie around. That's my guess. But also on your mobile phone, there are a lot of people who are, the mobile phone editing game is getting a lot better, and you can download free apps and just shoot stuff on your phone to practice putting it together. The whole thing is practice. You're not going to be any good at first. Nobody is. I mean, I look back on myself 10 years ago and I think, wow, that wasn't my greatest work, but you're always improving, and ask for feedback when you're ready to. But I think, I think even just stuff on your phone, learning to put things together, learning editing is mainly laying things down, cutting them and moving blocks around a screen. I think if you, whatever platform you do that on to practice, and then afterwards it's just, I might get told off for saying this, but afterwards, it's just learning different, keystrokes and things like that. But yeah, so I think there are definitely ways. If you can edit something on your mobile phone, there are feature films that
Yeah,
have been done that way.
it's the way to go forward, for sure,
Exactly.
Well, that's really great advice, Zeb. And, it's been really great talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing, your career story and also weaving it with all this advice. It's been great.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to hear from you. It's your turn to get in touch and share with me what's going on for you. No doubt you've been inspired by all my guests. They've all had incredible, stories to share and advice to give. But what I'm curious about is, have you taken on the advice of anyone in particular, and how have you implemented that? Do share with me how you've done that. I'd love to hear your stories. Also, if there's a particular job role that I haven't covered yet and that you're interested in, then again, leave me the details in the comment section and I will happily research that and try to secure an interview with an industry professional. And to keep up to date with all the interviews with all my incredible guests in my series, How to Get into TV, Radio and Film, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Well, it's been wonderful having your company today. Thank you so much for joining me, and see you next time.